Of all the bosses that you've ever worked for in your life so far, how many would you call truly great leaders?
If you want to drive growth in today's technology-driven, Uber-connected world, you're going to have to reckon with 6 new realities that might shock you but are absolutely true.
Inspiring Big Leaders presents Unleash Your Leadership Energy with our special guests, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Dr. Sabaria Putit, Deputy State Secretary for Performance and Service Delivery Transformation, Dr. Rajeev Peshawaria, Executive Coach and President, Leadership Energy Consulting, Tuan Ismail Said, Chief Executive Officer, Leadership Institute of Sarawak Civil Service. And please welcome your host, Mona Abdul Manap.
Hi everyone, welcome to Inspiring Big Leaders. This is an executive talk show. And I'm just speaking from what Rajeev said in one of his videos. Leadership is no longer about creating values or pleasing your stakeholders. It's not just about that. But right now, it is about creating a future for your people, for the community that we serve, and also for the greater world out there. But in order for you to do that, you, the leaders in the audience, us here, we all have to up our game. And we have to help the people around us, the upcoming leaders around us, to up theirs. Whether you are in the corporate or in the public sector, we are all important for Sarawak's development. And that's why this talk show, Inspiring Big Leaders, was initiated by the Leadership Institute of Sarawak in line with the state's PCDS or Post-COVID Development Strategy 2030. This is to transform our human capital, and that's you. This will be the first of a series of talk shows, so watch this space as we announce new topics or upcoming topics in the future. Now, today's topic is Unleash Your Leadership Energy. Now, Tuan Ismail, we have learned about this Inspiring Big Leaders talk show. This is an initiative or part of the initiative of the Leaders Build Leaders. This is under the Sarawak Civil Service, I believe. And this is to develop leaders that create impact for Sarawak so that we go into Transformation 2030. Now tell us a bit more about that initiative and what does it mean when you say big leaders?
I would like to start in the context of the Sarawak Civil Service. It is important that we understand the context of big leaders, how we envision it. We envision big leaders in the state more of people that understand their very existence, why they exist. But it goes beyond existence. It goes beyond translation of vision or state aspiration into strategies, plans, and activities. At the center of big leaders' agenda is always people. It is the realization of the fact that you can only deliver a project, success or failure, through people.
Yep.
And it's how you maximize that, it's how you harness that, and how it transcends across individual into teams. If we take the state to deliver a piece of work, we may have to transcend 6, 7 agencies or 15 agencies. And that's important for us to be able, as a big leader, to actually have that social influence, to bring people together. And in the context of the Sarawak Civil Service, it is important for us to always remember it is underpinned by 6 shared values. We must apply our 6 shared values consistently. Now, how do we translate that? How do we translate that into our leadership development for Sarawak Civil Service? We approach it from career-long mentoring programs. But that's not enough. We want to anchor that around understanding social behaviors that possibly could inhibit performance. Performance matters. But all of that will only operate if you operate in an ecosystem that allows for growth. What better way to create an environment of growth if you actually allow leaders to develop leaders? And that's the anchor of how we talk about leaders develop leaders in the context of Sarawak Civil Service.
Right. And you mentioned before that you also will be having data, you'll be utilizing data in talent management. How are you going to do that?
Indeed, it is the one of the underpinning pieces of work that we do. I think we're trying to move the state in terms of harnessing talent, maximizing effort from intuition, firasat as we call it from time to time in our local language, firasat. We move it away from firasat or intuition to insights. But we do not stop there. We have a lot of information, we have a lot of data, but the ability to translate that insights into something useful to help the state make decision is a skill we must acquire. Before we go any further, Mona, I must bring Dato into the picture.
Yep.
Because I think in any conversation regarding Sarawak civil service or public sector leadership, we must understand where we come from. Yeah, we must understand where we come from, where are we now, but more importantly, how do we meet the challenges of trying to deliver the 2030? I can think of no better person to explain to us the three segments of that scenario. So, Dato, can I invite you to actually enlighten us? Tell us where do we come from, where are we now, what are the challenges that you see ahead in the context of PCDS?
Allow me to say this. I'm humbled by the statement, but I don't mind to share our journey in this public sector transformation, particularly in the Sarawak public service. Yeah? Having said that, I think we come a long way in this transformation. Yeah? I think most of us here who are part of the conversation today, except for Rajeev possibly, may have understand the context better, as they have been part and parcel of this transformation since 2010. Yeah? And of course, I'm not going to deliver today or this morning the whole chapters of it, but suffice for me to say a number of key initiatives in the key initiatives in the journey that has gone a long way. Yeah? The fact that we even started with what you call that the 6 shared values. Yeah, would like to emphasize again the DNA of the organization that we are trying to build with the 6 shared values of integrity, professionalism, kind and caring, or what you call today is simply empathy, yeah, service with the heart. Yeah, it's all about being kind and caring. And of course, there are shared values, another few more, as a result-oriented sense of urgency and ownership. Yeah? These are key to what we are today. And as I said, with a mantra too, and a tagline, and honor to serve. Even the YB Chief Minister said and mentioned, this is really an honor to serve. Yeah? And of course, this has somehow rather been institutionalized through many initiatives throughout the state, whether it comes in the form of courses, in onboarding programs, and the like. Yeah? And to be fair, where we come from, again, there are areas that we have actually has created the necessary impact. Yeah, into the service delivery itself. Take, for example, in innovation and creativity, where we are trying right from the beginning of the transformation, yeah, through ICC, yeah, innovative and creative circles, yeah, yes, and also the key focus activities and high-performing team solutions. Yeah, these are all team-based kind of approach. Again, talking about making sure the public service is working in high-performing teams. Yeah?
Yep.
Since then, when we started, we only have 22 teams. Yeah, now we have more than 1,000 plus teams, 1,500 teams.
That's amazing.
We are the most ICC teams in the whole of the nation. And we, not to suggest that, we are so want to be recognized only, yeah, by even international circles on ICCs on innovation and creativity, but with a view that all this innovation and creativity culture will generate, yeah, the necessary solutions and innovations that can make the public service more efficient and effective. The number of these innovations has somehow rather created the necessary impact in terms of reduced costs, improve efficiency of the sectors. Not only that, in some agencies and departments, they have come with new solutions, new applications, and new framework to move further into this where we are today. Yeah, having said that, There are other areas, yeah, like our, what do you call that? Our a good example is also our Service Sarawak. Yeah? Now Service Sarawak has expanded, yeah, in 6 divisions.
6 divisions.
Yeah, we have also Service Sarawak. That is the centers. Yeah, we have Service Sarawak kiosks as well, because we try to provide a multi-channel. Yeah, then now we also create Service Sarawak digital, the web, the apps as well. Yeah, this is a multi-channel kind of. Yeah.
Wow.
So in a way, in the future, we are moving into our communities, yeah,
Right.
through our digital community centers.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are penetrating into making sure that the community are benefiting right from our services that we have innovated. Yeah.
Okay.
Then we are blessed, in fact, yeah, with the Chief Minister actually propagating what you call as spearheading the digital economy in 2017. Yeah. That has somehow rather fast-tracked our e-government into digital government agenda. Yeah, and we have now really moved into digitalization of our services. In fact, there are a lot more. I mean, the like of Leadership Institute, for example, with the e-learning platform, virtual platforms, and the e-commerce platforms. Yeah, these are fast-tracking our digitalization of the now. Can say that for the moment.
Thank you, Dato'. I have to cut you in because we're just going for a break, but it's refreshing to see that the public sector is talking about customer-centric, being customer-centric. Usually it's the private sector that talks about that, so I think we're going in the right direction. We're going to go on a short break here and stay tuned. Back to Inspiring Big Leaders. And we're going to cross over to Singapore right now. And I would like Tuan Ismail, my co-host, to have the honors of introducing our guest speaker for today.
Thank you, Mona. I asked myself, how do you introduce someone like Dr. Rajeev? I can look at him as a teacher, but at the same time, he's a consultant who has worked with many most admired companies, Fortune 500 companies in the world. So I will try this, Dr. Rajeev. One of my favorite movies is The Godfather. To me, that's a typical boss's movie. But there's only one movie that I can actually ascribe to steward leader, and that's Gandhi. So if I look at that range of leadership movies that we see before us, it clearly shows segmentation of leadership and how each leader are different from the rest and how effective they are. So to you, we refer, Rajeev, what is leadership and how do you differentiate effective leadership post-COVID in a challenging environment? So over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. You know, for the last 20 years, I have been asking people, what is leadership? And no matter where in the world I ask the question, people respond as follows. Leadership is the act of influencing, directing, coaching, inspiring, thising or thatting people towards achievement of some common goals. In other words, people think of leadership as something that you do to other people. And that is a huge misconception. You mentioned Gandhi. You look at people like Gandhi, you look at people like Nelson Mandela, you look at people like Martin Luther King. They never did anything to other people. Whatever they did to themselves. And that example became inspired followership. So leaders are not about telling other people what to do. Leadership is not a title. Leadership is not a position. Leadership is about having the burning desire to create a better future.
I like that first part of, I would call it, if I use this word, am I allowed to use this word, Rajeev, misconception. That's the biggest misconception about leadership, actually. And I had this experience recently working with an agency that wants to go through what they call change in management. And after a series of conversation over 3 weeks, they begin to turn around and begin to ask what has transformed. So I think you have just clarified that one of the biggest misconceptions of leadership is it's not about doing something to others, it's about doing something to yourself. So can you elaborate for us a bit more, Rajeev, your leadership maturity continuum? That's something that I love. It really encapsulates everything else that you need to know about leadership from start, basically as a boss, as they call it. Yeah, you've been in Malaysia, Rajeev, you know the common phrase out there, we have too many bosses. Yes, boss, to the very extreme of when we start looking for who is a steward leader?
All of us, when we are young, when we are infants and we are young children, we are dependent on other people. We are dependent on our parents, on our teachers, and on society, even for basic needs. And it's all about who can help me, who can give me what. And that is the dependence stage, where it's all about what can I get from the world. And the sad part is that most people, no matter how old they become, they remain in that dependent stage, that my life is about getting things from the world and from other people. Some people finally get into what we call the interdependence stage, where they realize that actually life is not about just getting from the world, but also about giving to the world. And that is where they begin their leadership journey, that they ask themselves the question, who am I? Why am I in this world? And how is the world going to be slightly better because of my life? Now they are giving themselves a purpose, that I'm not here to just live and to die one day. I'm here to make a better future, and I'm going to give myself a purpose. And then finally, the final stage of maturity is when you move from interdependence to independence. So now you already have interdependence, whereby your life is all about creating a better future for other people. But independence means, in addition to that, you derive your own happiness, your own satisfaction, your own sense of well-being internally, not externally. You don't wait for somebody to praise you. You don't wait for somebody to reward you. You are intrinsically motivated because the journey that you're on itself. Now nobody can upset you. Now nobody can do anything bad to you, because how you feel now depends entirely on you. So those are the three levels: dependence, interdependence, and independence. Very few people get to that independence.
I almost start my next sentence by saying, can you make it simpler for me? In the context of civil service, as we begin to talk about an honor to serve, as Dato' has mentioned earlier, an honor to serve, and how do we deliver service to the Rakyat? We are probably at level 2 of the conversation, and how do we define whether that leader is effective? Is it because of the reach to the Rakyat, or is there something else? But I also have one burning question inside me, Rajeev, as you describe it. I know I've come across leaders that always look at this question around, I have tried everything. I've been rated the best in my skill. I've been going through coaching, but there is a missing link. So if there's such a thing as a missing link, despite all the clarity of purpose, all the 6 shared values I've gone through, is there a missing link? So 2 things. How do I find that effective leader, or what are the symptoms of effective leaders? And is there such as a missing link?
Yeah, so, we put too much focus on competency models and skills if we want to develop leaders. But if I may just use an example of a civil servant, Nelson Mandela. He was in prison for 27 years under very harsh conditions, and yet did not give up on his dream of building a rainbow nation. If we can answer the question how somebody can go through prison for 27 back-breaking years, we will understand what the missing thing is. The question is, how did he not give up? And if you can put up that second slide that you were showing earlier, I will try to explain what I mean. The first step is not giving up is the secret source of leadership. It is called leadership energy. And it is made up of 2 things. One is very, very honest clarity about what my values are. And these values I will never compromise no matter what happens. So when Nelson Mandela comes out of prison and finally becomes president, what do the people of South Africa, the majority people of South Africa, want? They want revenge. They want an eye for an eye. But what does Nelson Mandela offer instead? He offers forgiveness. He offers reconciliation. And that is because his values of forgiveness and reconciliation and non-violence are sacrosanct to him. He will never compromise no matter what happens. Even his wife and daughter, who he waited for 27 years to reunite with, were upset with him. What are you doing? You are selling your soul to the devil? We want you to do what the people elected you for. And he said, no. His wife and daughter left him. They deserted him. He consoled himself by saying, my family is not people. My family is 44 million people. That is the kind of deep and honest clarity of values I'm talking about. If you want to have the long-lasting energy, do not give up. Now that you have this values clarity, you look at all those things that give you energy based on those values and find one thing that you want to make your purpose. And together, those two sources become the main ingredients of your leadership energy, which is why Gandhi, Mandela, and a whole lot of other civil servants that I've talked to and observed never give up. Because that values-based purpose is the secret sauce, not anything else. Yes, competencies are important. Yes, coaching is important. Mentoring is important. All those things can help you clarify. But above all, deep inside, that leadership energy made up of your values and purpose is the core.
Wow, that's amazing, right? Thank you, Rajeev. And you spoke about 27 years he was in prison. Imagine the amount of time that he had to sustain that energy and the amount of energy that he had to begin with for him to actually last that long. And you spoke about values-based purpose. I read your article on Forbes on this, and I think that's for another webinar. We don't have time for that today, but we're just going to go on a short break, and we're going to dive deeper into leadership energy after the break. Welcome back to Inspiring Big Leaders. Now, being emotionally independent and able to harness your emotions or empower your emotions, I think that's quite important and a key strength of a leader. Don't you agree, Tuan Ismail?
I indeed agree. I will cut you short, Mona. I just want to turn to Dato' immediately. And if I may say, she's one character that come across to me as being emotionally resilient and independent. And I think she has demonstrated that during her tenure in office as Deputy State Secretary. And I think in the recent in the recent drive towards bringing up Okeshi, the old Kuching smart heritage, and of course during the pandemic. So Dato', I'll ask you this question: how do you keep yourself emotionally resilient and independent?
Again, I say I'm humbled by that, but basically it's going back to that core purpose, and also a line of sight. You are very clear into what is your line of sight into getting into that agenda of delivering to the people. So with that, others become a distraction. If you have challenges, meaning it's just a test for a new solutions. Having been able to put yourself into away from that challenges to come up with new solutions is the order of the day. And I believe also many of us are able to do that. And like we are in our conversation now talking about how we bring about a team or the community to come forward with us into, say for example, our initiative of Old Kuching Smart Heritage, because empowering the community takes a lot of effort and a lot of time for hand-holding, but that's the pleasure of doing it. Because to see them come on board, to see them have the aspiration that we desire is the order of the day too. So that becomes, other than that, is merely distractions, and a lot of optimism into what you're doing, So, and also the fact that you have to understand, I think people are having different perspectives. They're born with different ideas, different perspectives. It's very unique on its own. So everything that we are doing, I believe also there is a chain reaction. There's also action and reaction. So you are bound to have all these elements coming up while you're doing your work. So I believe having a good understanding on all these allows you to be a little bit more patient than others, a little bit more perseverance in what you're trying to do here, That's how I feel about the whole thing. But I believe you guys are the same in your work.
Thank you, Dato'. I will turn to Rajeev now.
Yes.
I think, Rajeev, emotional empowerment is such a strong concept in my view. It has a lot of, I think if I borrow Dato's word, there's a lot of nature and nurturing in it. Now, if I turn to my audience now and look at many emerging leaders in the state, how do we develop amongst our emerging leaders that emotional prowess in them, Rajeev? Is that a valid question to start with?
Oh, very valid question. And there are two stages to go from dependence to independence. As I said, the middle stage is interdependence. And interdependence, we've already talked about quite a bit, which is that this is where you start with full integrity to look at your values and give yourself a values-based purpose. Now, with that empowerment of values-based purpose, you have become interdependent, meaning your success depends on the world and the world's success depends on you. How do you go to full emotional independence, which is the highest stage? So you've conquered stage one if you already have a true purpose based on values discovered by emotional integrity. How do you go to independence? Now, that last stage is called the mastery stage. And here you have to master three big ideas. One is gratitude. The other is acceptance. And the third is forgiveness. If you can master these three big ideas, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness, now you are truly emotionally independent. So, gratitude basically says, instead of worrying about all the things that you don't have in life, whenever you are feeling depressed, whenever you are feeling upset or angry, just make a list of all the gifts that you have in life, all the things that you are thankful and grateful for. You can repeat this exercise 1,000,000 times whenever you want. Every time you spend 2 minutes doing that, either writing it down or in your mind, you will suddenly feel calm. And now, with that gratitude, say, all right, there are certain things that are not in my control. I have a lot to be grateful for. I will accept the things that I have no control over with equanimity and with grace. And eventually, you have to teach yourself the biggest gift, which is the ability to forgive. Conflict in this world exists because we don't know how to forgive. But if you can put yourself in the other person's shoe and learn to forgive, now what happens is gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness have become your best friends. Nobody can upset you. Nobody can treat you badly. Because the science of this is very straightforward. If somebody is hurling abuses at you and insulting you, they are not insulting you. Because they have no ability to get inside your brain and create a chemical reaction with your neurons. Only you have the ability to decide what goes on in your brain, and you can decide, no, I will not let this abuse and this insult create havoc in my brain. I choose to forgive. So with these three ideas, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness, you rise above, and now only you decide how you feel. Because let's be clear, nobody can decide how you feel unless you let them. So your values-based purpose as a framework, number one, and on top of that, the mastery framework, attitude, acceptance, and forgiveness, and you are now truly independent. You can achieve anything you want.
Yeah. After this, the three of us will go out there feeling better by the day after hearing to you.
No, I'm smiling behind my mask, Rajeev, because I remember the quote by Einstein. Albert Einstein used to say, "The weak will seek revenge. The weak will seek revenge. The strong will seek forgiveness." It's the smart one that will ignore it. So you use your third element as forgiveness. So I think we probably need to square off again with Einstein exactly which one do we follow. But I think I prefer your model of always have the gratitude, be willing to have that gratitude. And I think that forgiveness is a very powerful thing as well. And there is something else that affects me when I listen to that, Rajeev. How do one, sometimes some of this emotional empowerment depends on your upbringing as well. Is there such a thing that we can change that? I mean, I can remember very clearly, Emotional empowerment depends, for example, if you're always angry when you react to something, how do you, when you grow as adult, change that in your when you enter similar situation as an adult? Is that something you can change?
Another misconception about values is that values is something that was imbibed in you by your parents and by society as you were a kid and as you were growing up. So your circumstances, the way you were brought up decides who you are, and that is your personality, and that is static, that cannot change. It is a huge misconception. Again, it comes back to choice. At any point in our life, we can turn around and look back into our life so far and say, okay, these have been my beliefs so far. These are the things that have motivated me so far. Am I happy with the person that I am? Or do I need to change the things I place value on? Do I need to change my attitude towards what the rest of my life is going to be? Do I need to challenge some of the values that were imbibed in me, by my parents and by society? And if you feel like there is compelling reason to do so, you have every power to say, no, I don't value this anymore, I value that more now.
I like that, Rajeev, and I think that comes back, I guess, to emotional integrity that you mentioned about, you talked about earlier. And I think for us to be honest with ourselves, I think that's very painful at some points. And a lot of people probably want to blame their childhood and their past to justify why they are like this today, because they refuse to change, or they maybe don't know how to, or it's just so difficult. So they prefer to say, I was brought up like this. And I think this is a really powerful thing. And as a leader, you need to understand that, because then you can see it in yourself and in others, and you can help them. We're going to go on a short break after this. Just stay tuned. We're going to dive deep. After this, it's going to be really interesting, because it's going to be some self-coaching techniques. So Rajeev is going to tell you about how you can coach yourself before you coach others. So stay tuned. Short break. Welcome back to Inspiring Big Leaders, and we were talking about leadership energy, about emotional integrity, values-based purpose, and many more. Rajeev, we all know the importance of sustaining your energy for a variety of reasons: continuity of your business plans or your strategies, energizing your team or your whole organization. So you yourself must have enough energy to energize other people. And this ties in, I think, with the leader's own emotional strength, because it is an emotional process. So and you mentioned a bit about emotional independence earlier on. Can you elaborate that one a bit more here?
So first of all, how do you sustain that energy? That is something that all three of you have alluded to. Again, I go back to the likes of Mandela. There were many, many times during the 27 years where he felt like giving up, where he says, no, I cannot go on. So how did he sustain himself? Simply by closing his eyes and imagining that the better future he has in mind, in his case, the Rainbow Nation, has already happened. He would close his eyes and visualize the better future and pretend that it's already been made. And that would energize him to get up once again to fight the fight. So again, whether you can sustain your energy or not has got nothing to do with your physical strength. It's got everything to do with your emotional strength. And that emotional strength is based on the purity and honesty of your values and a purpose larger than yourself based on those values. So that's the key in terms of sustaining that energy. If your purpose is not bigger than yourself, you will weigh things as risk or reward and say, it's not worth it, let me give up. But when your purpose is based on your values and when it is bigger than yourself, now you lose fear. Mahatma Gandhi used to say, when he was trying to fight the British, they may arrest me, they may torture my body, they may break my bones, even kill me, but then they will have my dead body, not my obedience.
Wow.
Now, why was such a frail little man so powerful and not scared? Because his purpose was bigger than himself. And his values, again, Mandela was inspired by Gandhi in terms of the values, nonviolence, humility, and truth. They were sacrosanct to him. no matter what the cost might be. So that is the essence of sustaining energy, how genuinely honest you are with yourself.
I'm enlightened by many words you use, and as much as I'm behind my mask struggling to understand a lot of things and trying to put it into perspective, one of the things that we see undergoing currently globally is what I call the moral evolution. Things are happening around us where I think in your articles you talk about people talking about CEOs talking about moving from seeing beyond profit, see beyond profit, profit to purpose. Now, are these cliches, or from your 30 years of experience, are these cliches, or are these really a real movement now, where in private sectors leaders are beginning to talk about a common good as well? So, is common good the sustainer for leadership energy these days?
Yeah, so this brings me to my current role in Singapore. I lead a non-profit think tank called Stewardship Asia Center, in which we look at exactly the question that you're raising. Why is suddenly everybody talking about purpose over profit? Why is everybody suddenly talking about sustainability and ESG and greater good? So because the buzz has increased in the last 5 years alone, it seems to hint that this might be the flavor of the month or something like that, right? So is there some energy to this? Is there some truth to it? Or is it just flavor of the month or the year? Well, a few things here. The fact that the world is in peril is without doubt. If we continue to live and consume and behave the way we have behaved in the last few hundred years, we will mortgage and finish the future of our children and grandchildren even before it starts. Now, science and research has proven that that is to be true, right? That if we don't do anything about climate change and the havoc that it causes, we are actually ruining the future of our children, and even the current generation for the next 20 to 30 years is going to pay the hefty price. So, other thing that has happened is we live in a society where everybody, excuse me for using this word, everybody today is almost naked. Whether you're a leader, whether you're a non-leader person, everything you do, everything you say is in full public view today. Then, third thing, ordinary people are more empowered than ever before because everybody has a supercomputer in their pocket these days. And today we can find information about who said, who did, whether a public leader or a corporate leader. Everything they say or do is in full public. So ordinary consumers are more powerful than ever before. The world is in a crisis. Therefore, whether it's governments, civil servants, or the corporate sector, everybody has to react and do something about it if we are going to save the planet and if we are going to save it.
The conversation around purpose is of interest to me. Now, you just showed us your handphone, and it kind of brings to mind what I call communal empowerment. Now, when you talk about leadership as harnessing the energy for a better future, almost individually by nature, how do you square off that conversation by saying, in a communal empowered society, isn't it everyone a leader versus an individual trying to create a better future? So let's take what happened in Malaysia recently through the floods. The society comes together quickly, and there was no one individual that tries to think of a better future for everyone. It's a group of people. So how do you square that off in terms of what is leadership now?
So very good question. I was actually trying to stick true to the topic of today's conversation, which you said was leadership energy, but I'm glad you asked the question. We used to define leadership as the art of harnessing human energy towards the creation of a better future, right?
Yeah.
In my recent writings and the book that I'm writing now, which is called Making Sustainability Sustainable, we say that leadership is the genuine desire and persistence to create a collective better future. So this is the definition of steward leadership. They're saying today you don't just need leadership, you need steward leadership. Why? Because there is one lesson that COVID-19 has taught us, it is this. No one is safe until everyone is safe. right? So the days of just making a better future for yourself, for your shareholder, are over. Now you have to work towards creating success for yourself and your shareholder by creating a better future for a variety of stakeholders, including society at large, future generations, and the environment. So the definition of leadership has evolved from leadership to steward leadership, which, as I said, is the genuine desire and persistence to create a collective better future, not just any better future.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
this applies to government leaders as well. A lot of government leaders are saying we are all about common good, but not everybody is genuine on it. And they really need to look in the mirror. Am I saying all these things to win an election, or am I saying all these things because I have genuine desire and persistence to make my country or the world a better place?
Like you were saying, yeah, if we can see the flood case in Malaysia, for example, yeah, where the community are taking up the challenges on their own, yeah. But the challenge is also how ready are the public sector taking this up? Yeah? This is a big challenge, as I said. Yeah? And in fact, it's not just talking about managing the pandemic now, which we are able to manage it with what you call that and sustain it. But we are trying to move into a new post-COVID development strategy, bringing us into an advanced economy. We are looking at the global now, global challenges as well. To you.
And that is exactly what I mean by creating a collective better future. I have had the good fortune of living in Malaysia for many years, and I've always looked at the state of Sarawak as, if I may say so, a little ahead in terms of its ambition of creating that collective better future. Every time I travel to Sarawak, I used to feel a different kind of energy. And so, that is exactly what it is. You have to decide as a leader, how far do you want to go? Will you do enough to just look good? Will you do enough to just have a comfortable life? Or are you willing to take whatever it takes to make the world and the people that you serve better?
Yes. I think I agree with Datuk Sabaria. I think the pandemic has given us a chance to actually uncover a lot of the loopholes that we sort of ignored before, or maybe some of our weaknesses that we never actually recognized before. And I think that's a great opportunity. Of course, there were also bad things happening, but there's also opportunities for us to improve. We're just going to go on a short break, and coming back, we're going to go deeper into emotional independence. Welcome back to Inspiring Big Leaders. Now, being emotionally independent and able to harness your emotions or empower your emotions, I think that's quite important and a key strength of a leader. Don't you agree, Tuan Ismail?
I indeed agree. I will cut you short, Mona. I just want to turn to Dato' immediately. And if I may say, she's one character that come across to me as being emotionally resilient and independent. And I think she has demonstrated that during her tenure in office as Deputy State Secretary. And I think in the recent in the recent drive towards bringing up Okeshi, the old Kuching smart heritage, and of course during the pandemic. So Dato', I'll ask you this question: how do you keep yourself emotionally resilient and independent?
Again, I say I'm humbled by that, but basically it's going back to that core purpose, and also the line of sight. You are very clear into what is your line of sight into getting into that agenda of delivering to the people. So with that, others become a distraction. If you have challenges, meaning it's just a test for a new solutions. Having been able to put yourself into away from that challenges to come up with new solutions is the order of the day. And I believe also many of us are able to do that. And like we are in our conversation now talking about how we bring about a team or the community to come forward with us into, say, for example, our initiative of Old Kuching Smart Heritage, because empowering the community takes a lot of effort and a lot of time for hand-holding, but that's the pleasure of doing it. Yeah, because to see them come on board, to see them have the aspiration that we desired is the order of the day too. So that becomes, other than that, it's merely distractions, and a lot of optimism into what you're doing, yeah. So, and also the fact that you have to understand, I think people are having different perspectives. They're born with different ideas, different perspectives. It's very unique on its own. So everything that we are doing, I believe also there is a chain reaction. There's also action and reaction. So you are bound to have all these elements coming up while you're doing your work. Yeah. So I believe having a good understanding on all these allows you to be a little bit more patient than others. Yeah, a little bit more perseverance in what you're trying to do here. Yeah. That's how I feel about the whole thing. But I believe you guys are the same in your work.
Thank you, Dato'. I will turn to Rajeev now.
Yes,
I think, Rajeev, emotional empowerment is such a strong concept in my view. It has a lot of, I think if I borrow Dato's word, there's a lot of nature and nurturing in it. Now, if I turn to my audience now and look at many emerging leaders in the state, how do we develop amongst our emerging leaders that emotional prowess in them, Rajeev? Is that a valid question to start with?
Oh, very valid question. And, there are two stages to go from dependence to independence. As I said, the middle stage is interdependence. And interdependence, we've already talked about quite a bit, which is that this is where you start with full integrity to look at your values and give yourself a values-based purpose. Now, with that empowerment of values-based purpose, you have become interdependent, meaning your success depends on the world and the world's success depends on you. How do you go to full emotional independence, which is the highest stage? So you've conquered stage one if you already have a true purpose based on values discovered by emotional integrity. How do you go to independence? Now, that last stage is called the mastery stage. And here you have to master three big ideas. One is gratitude. The other is acceptance. And the third is forgiveness. If you can master these three big ideas, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness, now you are truly emotionally independent. So, gratitude basically says, instead of worrying about all the things that you don't have in life, whenever you are feeling depressed, whenever you are feeling upset or angry, just make a list of all the gifts that you have in life, all the things that you are thankful and grateful for. You can repeat this exercise 1,000,000 times whenever you want. Every time you spend 2 minutes doing that, either writing it down or in your mind, you will suddenly feel calm. And now, with that gratitude, say, all right, there are certain things that are not in my control. I have a lot to be grateful for. I will accept the things that I have no control over with equanimity and with grace. And eventually, you have to teach yourself the biggest gift, which is the ability to forgive. Conflict in this world exists because we don't know how to forgive. But if you can put yourself in the other person's shoes and learn to forgive, now what happens is gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness have become your best friends. Nobody can upset you. Nobody can treat you badly, because the science of this is very straightforward. If somebody is hurling abuses at you and insulting you, they are not insulting you, because they have no ability to get inside your brain and create a chemical reaction with your neurons. Only you have the ability to decide what goes on in your brain, and you can decide, no, I will not let this abuse and this insult create havoc in my brain. I choose to forgive. So with these three ideas, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness, you rise above, and now only you decide how you feel. Because let's be clear, nobody can decide how you feel unless you let them. So your values-based purpose as a framework, number one, and on top of that, the mastery framework, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness, and you are now truly independent. You can achieve anything you want.
Yeah. After this, the three of us will go out there feeling better by the day after hearing to you.
No, I'm smiling behind I'm smiling behind my mask, Rajeev, because I remember the quote by Einstein. Albert Einstein used to say, "The weak will seek revenge. The weak will seek revenge. The strong will seek forgiveness." It's the smart one that will ignore it. So you use your third element as forgiveness. So I think we probably need to square off again with Einstein exactly which one do we follow. But I think I prefer your model of always have the gratitude, be willing to have that gratitude. And I think that forgiveness is a very powerful thing as well. And there is something else that affects me when I listen to that, Rajeev. How do one, sometimes some of this emotional empowerment depends on your upbringing as well. Is there such a thing that we can change that? I mean, I can remember very clearly, emotional empowerment depends, for example, if you're always angry when you react to something, how do you, when you grow as adult, change that when you enter similar situation as an adult? Is that something you can change?
Another misconception about values is that values is something that was imbibed in you by your parents and by society as you were a kid and as you were growing up. So your circumstances, the way you were brought up decides who you are, and that is your personality, and that is static, that cannot change. It is a huge misconception. Again, it comes back to choice. At any point in our life, we can turn around and look back into our life so far and say, okay, these have been my beliefs so far. These are the things that have motivated me so far. Am I happy with the person that I am? Or do I need to change the things I place value on? Do I need to change my attitude towards what the rest of my life is going to be? Do I need to challenge some of the values that were imbibed by me, by my parents and by society? And if you feel like there is compelling reason to do so, you have every power to say, no, I don't value this anymore, I value that more now.
I like that, Rajeev, and I think that comes back, I guess, to emotional integrity that you mentioned about, you talked about earlier. And I think for us to be honest with ourselves, I think that's very painful at some points. And a lot of people probably want to blame their childhood and their past to justify why they are like this today, because they refuse to change, or they maybe don't know how to, or it's just so difficult. So they prefer to say, I was brought up like this. And I think this is a really powerful thing. And as a leader, you need to understand that, because then you can see it in yourself and in others, and you can help them. We're going to go on a short break after this. Welcome back to Inspiring Big Leaders. And we've been talking a lot about a lot of things before this, but this is, I think, in my personal opinion, well, at least to me, this is the most exciting, because this is the self-coaching session. And I think we're all interested in knowing, how do we help ourselves? Rajeev, tell us, how do we take baby steps? So what are the practical steps for us to achieve this?
Mona, I want to go back to something you said before the break, which is we often blame our upbringing and our circumstances and say, this is who we are because this is how I grew up and this is how difficult my circumstance was, right? We also blame other people and other things whenever we feel any kind of discomfort. So, for example, if we are unhappy about COVID pandemic, we blame somebody or the other. We blame where it came from, we blame the government for its mishandling, or we blame our neighbor for giving us the infection, and we get very angry and we just, put the blame on them and rant it out. What that does, if you go on a rant and you vent out your frustration saying, your fault, because of you, I am in this situation, your brain temporarily creates an equilibrium and makes you feel somewhat better just momentarily. Hence, blame is the default sort of reaction, human reaction that happens. That, I don't want to take responsibility because it's your fault. I don't want to create a collective better future because this mess of sustainability and climate change was not created by me. Why should I be the one? So pass it on, you get equilibrium. That may be fine, but that is not leadership. So now coming back to the question about how can we coach ourselves? Again, two stages. The first stage is to set the foundation for yourself as a coach. And we've already talked enough about that. That is examining your values with full emotional integrity, developing a conviction that I will live those values no matter what happens, and then giving yourself a purpose based on your values. Now, that is your inner compass. Everything you do is charged by that inner compass of values and purpose. The second stage is firefighting. I am in a crisis. How do I coach myself? This is where the mastery stage comes in of gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness. And basically, every time you're in a crisis, go back to your values and purpose and ask yourself, what would I do as per my inner compass to solve the crisis? And what would I not do? And what would I do if I applied the principles of gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness? I cannot teach this to you in like a 2-minute conversation. It's something you practice over time and better and better at it. Experiential, cannot be learned in a textbook, cannot be learned in a classroom. The more you practice it, baby steps, get better and better. But I can share with you a story. During the 2008 financial crisis, there was a CEO I worked closely with in the US. And it came to the point where two big investment banks had already been liquidated, Lehman Brothers and Merrill Lynch. And now this bank was going to die the following day. And the government, the industry, everybody was trying to find solutions. And some of the most powerful people in the country called the CEO and said, sell your company for pennies because we need to save the markets. We can't have the economy suffering. Sell the bank for pennies. He was on the phone with the president's office and the regulators, and that's what they told him. Now, he, without consulting anybody, without calling a board meeting, without calling his management team meeting, said to them, ladies and gentlemen, what you're doing right now is trying to save the country. Try to do that. That is your job. My job is to save my company and to be loyal to what my leadership responsibility for this company is. I will not do what you're saying. I will face whatever consequences, but I'm going to try to invest this company and my employees. Thank you very much. Can you imagine? From the highest authorities of the country, a CEO is being told to do something and he says, I won't do it. I've never seen this kind of crisis leadership ever before. Later on, I sat down with him and asked him, how did you make the most important decision of your life in 30 seconds without even talking to anybody? Here's what he said. I asked myself two questions. Well, how does this crisis sit with my overall purpose? Is it a fight worth fighting, or should I run away? And the answer was straightforward. As the CEO of this company is to do the very best for this company and give up. And therefore, this is a fight worth fighting. And once it is a fight worth fighting, I ask myself the second question. If I act according to my values and the values of this company, how would I react? He says, when I ask myself that question, the answer my inner voice was 41,000 employees and their families have their trust in me right now, in the biggest crisis, to do the right thing by them. If I sell the company right now, they will all lose their wealth, they will all lose their jobs, and of course, I will retire happily because I'm 65 years old, I got plenty of money. Is this what I am their leader for? No, my values said, stay there, do the right thing, find a solution, and that's what we did. And eventually, we did not sell, we got another investor in, got the money to stabilize the company. Today, the company is doing incredibly well. The point I'm trying to make is, you have to first get the values and purpose right, and then over time, develop the three powerful skills of gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness. And if you do that, you will defeat every crisis in life. Crisis will never defeat you. You will never need another coach to be your own coach. So that's the essence of how I look at it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Very powerful. Yeah. I mean, again, I have to use the same word, Rajeev. It's profound. it's simple in its articulation, but I guess the biggest part to it is, it's the consistency of applying that in every situation. I think it's a practice that I would say, whether you're emerging leaders or otherwise, it's the consistency of that application that will make it profound and embed it within your DNA, really.
You're absolutely right. The word you used is consistency. I can repeat the word consistency as many times, because that is the key. Saying that you have some values and you have a purpose means nothing. How consistently do you apply that? How consistently do you pursue that? If it is genuine values-based purpose, you will never feel tiredness. You will never feel fatigue. And it is all about that consistency. So it is simple to articulate, but not simplistic at all. It is in fact really hard, day by day in and day out.
Right. I think you're right there, Rajeev, and of course you're right. This is what you said. I was just thinking about it, and I think that sometimes we do have our values, we have our foundation, but sometimes we may waver, in times of difficulties or in terms of our own inner weaknesses. I think that's the part where it could be a bit difficult, especially during a crisis. How do you see that? How do we improve ourselves in terms of strengthening your own, values, or upholding your own values, even during a crisis? How do you do that?
Again, it comes down to emotional integrity. The values that you say are your values, are they based on 100% self-honesty? Or are you, fooling yourself that those are your values? The only time you will feel like compromising your values is if they are not your really deeply held values in the first place.
Right.
I always use the example of mothers. Now, when a mother, an ordinary mother who is not otherwise courageous or anything, very ordinary mother, when she sees her child in harm's way, any mother anywhere in the world, when she sees her child in harm's way, she throw herself in the middle of that danger to protect her child, even if it means huge danger for herself. Even if it means losing her life or discomfort or danger to herself, she does that without thinking. How does she develop that kind of courage in that crisis, when she's otherwise not overly courageous or bold or anything like that? The answer is love. Her love for her child runs very deep and is much bigger than her own life. That is why she develops that courage. Now, leaders need to fall in love with the same way as a mother is in love with her child. Instead, you have to fall in love with a purpose that is bigger than yourself. You're in love with that purpose. Now you lose fear. If you lose fear, you don't give up. If you don't give up, you can never fail.
And like that you mentioned about without thinking. So it's so deeply ingrained in you that you do it without even thinking. You don't even have to think about it. We're just going to go on a short break. See you in a short while.
One, positive autocracy must replace democratic leadership. But the key word, of course, is positive. 2, talent and innovation are abundant, not scarce. And 3, early identification of high potentials is counterproductive. 4, if you want to maximize your people's productivity, minimize your control. 5, leadership energy trumps competencies and best practice case studies. And 6, emotional integrity is the key, not emotional intelligence. Thanks to the two biggest mega trends of our times, Uber connectivity and Uber population, exciting growth opportunities coexist with daunting threats to humanity. And the challenge of 21st century leadership is to drive profitable growth by taking those very threats head on. Question is, are our leaders and their organizations ready? I've spent the last 30 years studying companies and organizations from inside and out. I've conducted research across 28 countries and written extensively about leadership in this new era. And through it all, I've uncovered some essential truths.
What if we gave people the freedom to choose how much or how little they want to work?
Because in the old days, it was, I'm just running a company. I'm just running a company.
Yeah, I come here, I show up, I do what I have to do.
Shareholders.
Those days are over. Just working for shareholders, those days are over. Today, leadership is about creating a better future, not just maximizing shareholder wealth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the key to earning the right to use top-down leadership. Be autocratic about your values and your purpose, but to be humble, to be respectful, and to be compassionate with people. It is totally possible to do both at the same time. The biggest difference is the total transparency and the nakedness of leaders. And it's a good thing because there's a built-in mechanism for check and balance in there. Because I'm totally on display, because I'm naked, I better be watchful, and I can't fake it because everybody today has a supercomputer in their pocket. And that force is not a skill, it's not a competency, that force is deep within us. It's your intrinsic energy. Leadership is the art of harnessing human energy towards the creation of a better future.
Welcome back to the Inspiring Big Leaders talk show. And it has been a very insightful session so far. Have you enjoyed yourself, Tuan Ismail?
Tremendously.
Dr. Sarawak, yes. But we have been the only ones asking questions, and I think we should take some questions from the floor to be fair to the audience.
Indeed, indeed.
Right, and we've got the first person to ask a question. He'll be appearing on the screen with us, Tuan Riziandi Nawawi, who is the head of Employee Assistance Division for the State Human Resource Unit of Sarawak. Tuan Riziandi, are we ready?
Hi. Assalamualaikum. Good morning, Dato'.
Waalaikumsalam.
Tuan Ismail and host Mona. All right. Good morning, Rajeev. Riziandi here, head of the Employee Assistance Division, State Human Resource Unit. Okay. I believe in an integrated approach to leadership development so that our leaders are equipped with broad range of the required critical competencies. Okay. I think coaching should not be served in separate from others' leadership interventions, such as mentoring. From your many years of experience in Incliff and in many Fortune 500 corporation, how do you see coaching and mentoring both playing effective role in developing and transforming leaders, particularly in the Sarawak Civil Service? Thank you.
I couldn't agree with you more that we should not be seeing as one thing. Leadership development is not about saying these are 6 competencies and let's train you on those 6 competencies, right? First of all, leadership is very different for different people. It depends on the kind of collective better future you want to create. And secondly, any help that we can get to that independent stage where we are not only clear about our values and purpose, but we have also clear about the mastery when it comes to gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness. Both coaching and mentoring can help us. Coaches act as neutral parties who ask you questions to help you clarify your own thinking and get you to that emotional integrity place. Mentors help you with their own experience. They have domain knowledge of your experience. So if you're a civil servant, a senior civil servant can be your mentor because they understand the domain. Whereas a coach helps you understand yourself, your inner self, and gets you to a place of emotional integrity. So coaching, mentoring, anything that can help you to get to that place, it's a combination always.
Thank you, Rajeev. And we've got the next person to ask a question. Dr. Intan Rahmatazuddin, Principal Assistant Secretary from the Ministry of Women, Early Childhood and Community Wellbeing Development, Sarawak. Dr. Intan, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mona, and good morning to Dato', Tuan Haji Ismail and Rajeev. Hello to you in Singapore. Okay, a question for Rajeev. Okay, I know of a few new officers in the State Civil Service who have enrolled in the onboarding coaching programs. Okay, I really like seeing their growth after they have completed the whole onboarding training and coaching program. Yeah? This is such a wonderful example of how coaching helps young executives in their career. That is the age where the hunger for new skills and exposure is high for them. So it's very enlightening. But how about the senior executives, Rajeev? And specifically, how do you see coaching could be effectively served yeah, to maybe like all these like myself, to the senior executives in the civil service, especially when they are already seasoned. Thank you, Rajeev.
So coaching, in my view, is something like, you have a problem and a coach helps you through that problem. Self-coaching is, so coaching, when somebody else is coaching you, is like giving you a fish every day. Self-coaching is learning how to fish. So whether you are early in your life or whether you are later in your career and your life at a more mature level, at a later stage in life, I believe in, especially as you go more senior, in that idea of self-coaching. And what has helped me and a whole lot of other senior leaders that I have observed and worked with, either in government or in the private sector, is this ability to take silent pauses. So the habit of finding solitude, whether with your eyes closed or other meditative technique, to reflect on life and what is happening, and seeing yourself as a participant in the larger stage of life and asking questions, where am I? Where am I going? Where do I want to go from here? That silent pause, even 10 minutes of quiet meditation with your eyes closed every day helps a lot. And even if you do nothing but just observe your thoughts or focus on your breath, you will find that 7 out of 10 times, roughly, if you do a 10-minute silent meditation session with your eyes closed, the problem that you're grappling with, the solution will pop in your head. The issue is not that the problems are unsolvable. The issue is we don't create space in our brain, in our mind, process peacefully. And that is what self-coaching. You've already got your values, you've already got your purpose, you've understood or have begun to understand the three ideas of gratitude, acceptance, forgiveness. Now add this idea of silent pauses. And once a day, 10 minutes. And you will find that a lot of things that you thought you needed help for, solutions already pop up.
Thank you, Rajeev. We're going to go for a third question right now. This is from Datuk Kirudin Husaini, YS State Director, Fire and Rescue Department of Malaysia Headquarters in Sarawak. Go ahead, Datuk Kirudin.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Morning. Thank you, Mona. Good morning, Dr. Sabaria Putit, Tuan Ismail Said, and Brother Rajeev. Thank you for sharing and the invitation to participate in this talk show today. I'm Harudin Rahman Al-Husaini, and greeting from Fire Rescue Sarawak. Then allow me to share my concern and wonder around our topic of discussion. We're glad that Fire Rescue has been classified as emergency response services, which could be the true Tuesday. And looking at our response services, we will take Fire Rescue Department service relevant if we are not coming together with what the new world want. For example, if we look at today, if we are service merely a response services, we will take our department become irrelevant. And the world now is very challenging. And a part of human incident, emergency situation, we also are facing what I call unpredictable climate changes, and it contribute a lot of incidents happen to the world, including Sarawak. Just to share what called shared success, we collaborate for the greater goal of the fire service to Sarawak communities. And with this view, we try to build resilient communities toward disaster resistant, and it's a need a proactive leadership and think beyond normalcy. Because in war, speed is the essence of any victory. The same thing goes to the fire service. And looking at the topic that we're talking today, how coaching be able to transform emergency services from merely responding to one of proactive and lead in terms of new challenging in the world of emergencies. How you can relate leadership, being putting not only the fire service, but the people itself. Because in our concern, we want to see you before the fire, not after. So how Rajeev can share with this one. Thank you.
So you remind me of another civil servant that I know very well, and this is in India. She was the first person to join the Indian police force. And when you're in the police force, like in the fire department, you are generally there. The conception seems to be that the police force or fire department is there to respond to crises. In the case of the police, when she was head of prisons, it is about meting out the punishment to the criminal. But she was not satisfied with that as the role. The role is not just about responding. Using coaching, leadership energy as the coaching framework, she always asked herself, okay, what can my department do to make the world a better place for the largest section of society? I don't want to just mete out punishment, I want to reform. And even if somebody comes into the prison, I want them to go out, not just to do crime again so that they can come back into the prison because they're all in prison, but to be able to start a new life. So how can we transform criminal systems from being just punishing to reforming and adding to life? In other words, how do you use self-coaching to transform the fire department? Ask yourself that there is a certain part of the job which is to respond to a fire. And you've got to do that better than anybody else because every life matters, right? But what about when the engines are not on the road? How do we look at and imagine a better future that the fire department can do beyond just responding to fires? This is what self-coaching with leadership energy is all about, to ask yourself the questions. Based on my values, what should be the purpose that we should develop for the entire organization? And how do we align the organization to more than just responding to one fire after the other? That is what transformative leadership is all about.
Thank you, Rajeev. I'm just getting signal that we don't have time, but there's this one really, really good question. And Rajeev, if you could just answer this in like 1 or 2 minutes would be great. I don't want to miss this. This is from Atrisha from State Human Resource Unit. And she says, I realize that most discussion about leadership revolves around the leaders. But are there any studies regarding followership or the followers or your subordinates? For example, the emotional integrity of followers in particular. So what do you think about that, Rajeev?
So again, as I said in the beginning, we think about leadership in terms of followers. That leadership is a position, it's a title, it's about telling people, directing people, coaching people, commanding people. And I actually believe that it's got nothing to do with followers. Leadership has got everything to do with what you want to do with your life and deciding that what is the example that you want to set. And if people believe in your values and your purpose, they will join your journey. So you literally crowdsource your followers rather than converting your followers into doing what you say. You crowdsource it, you put your values and your purpose out there and see who joins the journey and then harness their energy towards this collective better future that you want to create. That is what I believe in as far as the relationship between leadership and followership is. Followers are not about I'm commander and you report to me, so you're my follower. No. You're a follower if you believe in my values and my purpose and want to join the journey towards creating a collective better future.
Right. Thank you, Rajeev. And I think that's also a book that you wrote, Outsource Leadership. And I think if anyone's interested, you can...
Open source leadership.
Open source leadership, yeah. So I think that's related to that, I believe. Great questions from our audience, and of course, great to have all the speakers that we have, but that's all the time that we have for today. And this is the episode of Inspiring Big Leaders, and today we're talking about leadership energy. A big thank you to our guest speaker today, Dr. Rajeev and Dr. Sabaria, for sharing their insights with us. And of course, to my amazing co-host, Tuan Ismail, for making my job a lot easier today. But guys, this is not goodbye, because we are going to see you again in our next episode with Dr. Marsha Reynolds, who will coach you on how to accelerate your success based on her success with businesses in over 40 countries around the world. So stay tuned for that one, and we're going to have a really amazing session again. We're going to take your questions again with Dr. Marsha Reynolds. Until then, have a great day ahead and see you next time.